You wake before sunrise, not because you have an alarm, because the cold has reached your skin. The fire in the center of the shelter is almost dead. Only a few red coals remain beneath the ash. Outside, wind drives snow against the entrance. Somewhere in the darkness, an animal calls. You do not know the temperature. There is no thermometer, no forecast, no heated floor, but your body understands the message. If those coals disappear, this shelter may become dangerously cold before morning. You crawl toward the fire. You place dry grass over the embers and blow gently. For a moment, nothing happens. Then a weak orange glow appears. You feel relief. But that small flame has not solved your real problem. Because fire was not enough. When we imagine early humans surviving winter, the answer seems simple. They made a fire. They wrapped themselves in animal skins. They waited inside a cave until spring. That explanation sounds simple. It was not. Fire could die. Wood could become wet. Smoke could fill a poorly ventilated shelter. A flame could warm the people sitting beside it, but it could not protect someone walking for hours through freezing wind. And fire could not solve the most dangerous winter problem of all, hunger. To survive cold seasons, early humans needed more than one invention. They needed an entire system. And that system began with a serious weakness. Humans are not naturally designed for extreme cold. A wolf carries thick fur everywhere it goes. A reindeer has insulation, specialized hooves, and a body adapted to cold environments. Humans have exposed skin, relatively little body hair, and fingers that lose strength and control when they become too cold. We do not hibernate. We cannot grow a winter coat. And unlike a mammoth, we cannot arrive in winter already wearing our house. So how did ancient humans enter cold regions and remain there? Part of the answer may have been biological. Researchers have proposed that some ancient human populations, including Neanderthals, had body shapes that helped conserve heat. A compact body and shorter limbs can reduce the amount of surface area exposed to cold air. But biology could only take humans so far. The greater advantage was behavior. Instead of waiting for evolution to grow better fur, humans made their own protection. Evidence suggests that prehistoric people processed animal hides using stone and bone tools. Scrapers could remove tissue from a skin. Awls could pierce holes. In later prehistoric periods, eyed needles allowed people to sew pieces of material together more precisely. The problem is that leather, fur, plant fiber, and thread usually decay. Archaeologists often find the tools used to make clothing, not the clothing itself. So we cannot know exactly what most prehistoric winter outfits looked like. But humans living in cold environments without body coverings would have faced enormous risks. And simply throwing a loose skin over the shoulders may not have been enough. Cold air moves through gaps. Snow melts. Wet material pulls heat from the body. Better-fitting clothing may have trapped warm air close to the skin. Foot coverings may also have been important, although direct evidence is rare. One badly protected foot could turn a hunting trip into a disaster. Prehistoric clothing was not about fashion. It was less about looking impressive and more about keeping all 10 toes. But clothing solved only one part of the problem. Nature, as usual, had other plans. Wind removes heat from the body. Even a strong fire struggles when cold air moves constantly through a camp. That made shelter essential. And no, early humans did not all live permanently inside caves. Caves were useful where they existed, but many landscapes had no suitable caves. A cave could also be damp, smoky, unstable, badly located, or already occupied by an animal with very strong opinions about property rights. Archaeological evidence suggests that prehistoric people also built shelters in open landscapes. At some sites, researchers have found post holes, stone arrangements, hearths, and large animal bones that may have formed parts of structures. Exactly how every shelter looked is still debated. Some may have used wooden frames covered with hides. Others may have included branches, grass, earth, or bone. The evidence is incomplete because the most important materials were organic and rarely survived. But the purpose was probably practical. A shelter did not need to feel comfortable by modern standards. It needed to block wind. It needed to keep sleeping areas reasonably dry, and it needed to slow the loss of body heat. But here is where things get more complicated. A shelter could protect people from wind, yet create another danger: smoke. A poorly ventilated shelter could trap smoke from the fire. Too much ventilation, however, allowed cold air inside. Early humans were not simply trying to make a warm room. They were balancing warmth, airflow, fuel, space, and safety. Even the location of a camp mattered. A group might choose a place near water, fuel, animal roots, or natural wind barriers. A rock wall, forest edge, or slope could reduce exposure. Choose badly, and every day required a longer walk for firewood. And winter makes every daily task more expensive. Your body burns energy to stay warm. You burn energy collecting fuel. You burn energy moving through snow. You burn energy hunting animals that are also struggling to survive. This creates a brutal equation. The colder the environment becomes, the more energy people may need. But winter can make food harder to obtain. Plants become scarce or disappear beneath snow. Some animals migrate. Others lose fat. Daylight becomes shorter. Travel becomes slower. A group could have fire, clothing, and shelter, and still starve. The obvious answer falls apart here. Winter survival was not only about staying warm, it was about finding enough energy to keep producing warmth. Evidence from animal bones at archaeological sites can sometimes show which species people hunted, how carcasses were processed, and during which seasons humans may have occupied an area. Researchers believe some groups timed their movements around animal migrations and seasonal resources. They may have followed herds. They may have returned to familiar camps. They may have moved before local conditions became too severe. But there was no single prehistoric winter strategy. A group living in Western Europe did not necessarily survive in the same way as a group living in Siberia. Some communities were highly mobile. Others may have remained longer in locations with reliable fuel, water, and food. One theory proposes that some groups preserved food by freezing, drying, or smoking it. Those methods are possible, and later societies used them widely. But direct archaeological evidence for specific storage practices is not equally strong at every prehistoric site. So we should not imagine every early human community entering winter with a perfectly organized warehouse. They probably did what humans still do when a plan meets reality. They improvised. They cracked bones to reach marrow. They processed fat-rich parts of animals. They gathered whatever seasonal plant foods remained available. They returned to places where food had been found before. And when one strategy failed, they needed another. But survival was only the beginning. The most powerful part of this system may not have been fire, clothing, or shelter. It may have been other people. One person could gather wood. One person could hunt. One person could repair a hide. But doing all of those jobs every day while injured, hungry, exhausted, or caring for a child would have been extremely difficult. A group could divide the work. Some people could maintain the fire. Others could collect fuel. Others could hunt, process meat, repair tools, prepare hides, protect children, or care for injured group members. We cannot know the exact division of labor in most prehistoric communities. We should not project modern family roles directly onto the past. But archaeological evidence shows that ancient humans transported materials, processed large animals, maintained living spaces, and sometimes supported individuals who survived serious injuries. Those activities suggest cooperation, and cooperation changed the mathematics of winter. If one hunter returned without food, another might have succeeded. If one person became injured, others might still feed and protect them. If the fire weakened during the night, someone else could restore it. Knowledge could also move through the group. Where can dry wood be found after snow? Which valley is protected from the wind? When do animals begin to migrate? How do you soften a hide without tearing it? Which routes become dangerous after ice forms? These skills were not built into the human body. They had to be learned. A child born in a cold environment did not survive because that child understood winter. The child survived because other people did. That may have been one of humanity's greatest advantages. Culture moves faster than evolution. A biological adaptation may require many generations. A better way to sew clothing can spread much faster. A safer shelter design can be copied. A successful hunting route can be remembered. A warning can be spoken before someone repeats a deadly mistake. But none of this made winter safe. Cold injuries happened. Hunts failed. Fires died. Storms arrived. People became sick. Some winters were probably catastrophic. The archaeological record cannot tell us exactly how many people died during one winter. It cannot tell us what a family felt when food began to disappear. And it cannot reconstruct every decision made in a shelter thousands of years ago. We cannot know for certain. But we should not romanticize prehistoric winter as an adventurous camping trip. There was no warm vehicle nearby, no rescue service, no emergency room. A damaged tool, a wet hide, or an injured foot could affect the survival of an entire group. Yet humans continued to live in cold regions, not because they were immune to winter, and not because they possessed one magical invention. They survived because each layer supported the others. Fire warmed the shelter and helped prepare food. Shelter protected people and fire from wind. Clothing allowed people to leave the shelter. Hunting and gathering supplied energy. Mobility helped groups reach new resources. Knowledge prevented old mistakes from becoming new disasters. Cooperation kept the whole system working when one person could not. Remove one layer, and survival became harder. Remove several, and the system could collapse. That is why fire was not enough. A flame might keep one person warm for a night, but only planning, technology, knowledge, and cooperation could help a community reach spring. And strangely, that ancient system still surrounds us. Our insulated homes are advanced shelters. Our coats are engineered layers of protection. Our refrigerators and food networks are modern forms of seasonal planning. Weather forecasts replace generations of watching wind, clouds, animals, and ice. Even gathering around a fireplace feels familiar for a reason. We changed the tools. We did not change the problem. Winter still reminds us that the human body has limits. Modern life simply hides the thousands of decisions required to protect us. Today, you turn a switch and the room becomes warm. You open a door and food is waiting. For early humans, warmth was never just a switch. It was a chain of work connecting every person in the group. So how did early humans survive winter? They used fire. But fire was only one layer. They made clothing where nature had not given them fur. They built shelters where caves did not exist. They followed food, repaired tools, remembered safe routes, protected children, and supported people who could not survive alone. Their greatest winter adaptation was not a thicker body. It was the ability to combine many fragile solutions into one powerful system. Humans did not defeat winter by becoming stronger than nature. They survived by becoming better at adapting together. And every warm room we enter today is built on that ancient idea.